James Harrison cursed under his breath as the environmental controls in his quarters malfunctioned again, sending a blast of steam through his bathroom. The Peace Summit Station, for all its groundbreaking technology and historical significance as the site of humanity's first major interstellar diplomatic conference, still had its share of technical hiccups. Emerging from the impromptu sauna, he grabbed the only clean towel left, a flimsy thing that barely covered what it needed to. The backup quarters were just down the corridor, and at this early hour, he figured the chances of running into anyone were minimal. He couldn't have been more wrong. As he rounded the corner, the station's artificial gravity chose that precise moment to fluctuate. James stumbled, his hand instinctively reaching for the wall instead of his towel. The thin fabric fluttered to the floor just as he found himself face to face with the Xylaxian twin ambassadors. Naira and Lyra stood before him, their silver-scaled skin shimmering under the corridor's soft lighting. Their characteristic four-armed forms were draped in the flowing crystalline robes of their diplomatic office. Their large, opalescent eyes widened simultaneously at the unexpected display of human anatomy. "By the 7 moons," Naira whispered, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Fascinating," Lyra added, her head tilting in a distinctly scientific manner. "The external positioning is quite different from our species." James snatched up the towel, his face burning hot enough to rival the station's malfunctioning environmental system. "My deepest apologies, ambassadors. This is not how I planned to begin our cultural exchange program." To his surprise, both sisters' scales shifted to a deep azure, their species equivalent of laughter. "No apologies necessary, Ambassador Harrison," Naira assured him, all 4 of her hands gesturing gracefully. "Sometimes the most meaningful diplomatic breakthroughs come from unexpected moments of vulnerability." "Indeed," Lyra agreed, her eyes still studying him with undisguised interest. "We were actually hoping to discuss the possibility of more informal cultural exchange sessions with you." Before James could respond, the station's alert system blared to life. Red warning lights pulsed along the corridors as Chief Security Officer Roth's voice echoed through the speakers, "All diplomatic personnel to secure zones immediately. Unidentified vessels approaching." "This is not a drill." The twin scales shifted to a pale silver, concern. "We should proceed to the diplomatic bunker," Lyra stated, though her gaze lingered on James. "And I need to get to the command center," he replied, already backing away. "But perhaps we can continue this cultural exchange at a more appropriate time." "We look forward to it," they answered in unison, their scales flickering briefly to a deep rose color that James had never seen before. As he rushed to his quarters to don his uniform, James couldn't shake the feeling that this embarrassing incident would prove to be more significant than anyone could have predicted. He had no idea just how right he was. The command center was chaos when he arrived. Holographic displays showed 3 ships of unknown configuration holding position just outside the station's defensive perimeter. Chief Roth, a towering woman with close-cropped gray hair and cybernetic enhancements visible at her temples, turned to James with relief. "Harrison, thank the stars. We need your diplomatic expertise. These vessels aren't responding to any known greeting protocols, but their energy signatures share similarities with Xylaxian technology." James studied the holographic readings, trying to focus on the task at hand rather than his recent encounter. "Have you contacted the Xylaxian ambassadors?" "They're requesting your presence in the diplomatic bunker," Roth replied, a knowing look in her enhanced eyes. "Apparently they specifically asked for you. Something about having already established a comfortable rapport." James managed to maintain his professional composure, though he could feel the heat returning to his face. "I'll head there immediately. Have all communications routed to my secure tablet." The diplomatic bunker was a self-contained facility within the station, designed to protect valuable political assets during any crisis. James found the twins waiting for him, their scales now a serious shade of deep blue. Several other diplomatic staff members were present, but the sisters immediately approached him. "Ambassador Harrison," Naira began, her voice low and urgent. We recognize those ships. They belong to the purist faction, an extremist group that opposes any close relations between Xylaxians and other species. They must have learned of our interest in expanding cultural exchange programs with humans, Lyra added, her scales rippling with concern. James raised an eyebrow at their choice of words, but focused on the crisis at hand. What are they capable of? What are their likely demands? The twins exchanged a look that seemed to carry volumes of unspoken communication. They are capable of great violence, Nyra said finally. But they also respect ancient Xylaxian traditions. Perhaps we could use that to our advantage. How so? James asked, acutely aware of how close the sisters had moved to him. Lyra's scales shifted to that mysterious rose color again. There is an old custom, the right of diplomatic union. It would make any attack on us a sacred taboo. But, Nyra continued, it would require us to declare our intention to pursue a formal triple bond. With you. James stared at them, his diplomatic training warring with his personal feelings. Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? We are suggesting, they said in perfect unison, their scales now pulsing with multiple colors, that our earlier encounter might have been fate rather than accident. As the unknown ships loomed on the displays around them, James realized he was about to either make history or cause an interstellar incident. Possibly both. The next few hours would change the course of human-Xylaxian relations forever, assuming they all survived long enough to see it through. James found himself in an impossible situation. The purist faction ships maintained their threatening position outside the station, while inside, he faced an equally daunting challenge, considering a triple bond proposal from the Xylaxian twins that could either prevent a war or start one. The rite of diplomatic union isn't just a ceremony, Lyra explained, her four hands moving in intricate patterns as she accessed the station's holographic display. Ancient Xylaxian symbols floated in the air between them. It's a binding contract, recognized across all Xylaxian territories as sacred and inviolable. Even the purists wouldn't dare interfere with a declared union intention, Nyra added, her scales shifting through thoughtful shades of blue. But there's something you should know before you decide. Chief Roth's voice interrupted through the comm system, Ambassador Harrison, the lead vessel, is transmitting a message. A harsh voice filled the diplomatic bunker, speaking in heavily accented Standard English. Peace Summit Station, this is Commander Vex of the Purity Defense Force. Our sensors detect unauthorized levels of biochemical compatibility scanning between human and Xylaxian life forms. This violation of natural order will not be tolerated. James shot a questioning look at the twins, whose scales had taken on a guilty lavender hue. Biochemical scanning? We may have, after our encounter. Lyra began. It's standard practice among our people before considering potential mates, Nyra finished. The results were surprisingly positive. James ran a hand through his dark hair, fighting back a slightly hysterical laugh. So not only did I flash you in the corridor, but you've already done the Xylaxian equivalent of a DNA test. Ambassador, Roth's voice cut in again, more urgent now. They're charging weapons systems. The twins moved in perfect synchronization, each placing two hands on James's shoulders while their other hands intertwined with each other, forming a circle. The rite requires absolute certainty, they said together. We cannot declare intent unless all parties feel genuine potential for connection. James looked into their opalescent eyes, remembering the instant spark he'd felt during their unconventional first meeting. Despite the chaos around them, something deeper was crystallizing in his mind. What do we need to do? The twin scales blazed with brilliant gold, pure joy. Nyra quickly accessed the diplomatic channel while Lyra began the formal gestures of the ritual. Commander Vex, Nyra announced, her voice carrying the weight of ancient tradition. We hereby invoke the right of diplomatic union, declaring our intention to form a triple bond with Ambassador James Harrison of Earth. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the station's ambient hum seemed to hold its breath. When Vex's voice returned, it trembled with shock. This, this is unprecedented. You dare corrupt our sacred traditions with human involvement. The traditions say nothing about species, Lyra countered. Only that hearts must be true and minds must be compatible. We demand the traditional period of courtship under the ancient laws. The weapon signatures from the purest ships powered down, they couldn't risk being seen as violators of sacred law. But Commander Vex wasn't finished. Very well. But we will observe every detail of the traditional trials. Any failure will be considered proof of human unworthiness. After the transmission ended, James let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. So, what exactly did I just agree to? The twins exchanged one of their mysterious looks. The rite has 3 phases, Lyra began. Physical compatibility, mental resonance, and spiritual harmony, Naira continued. All must be completed within 1 lunar cycle, they finished together. Before James could process this, his tablet chimed with an urgent message from Earth's diplomatic corps. The subject line read, "Explain yourself immediately." The trials aren't the only challenge we'll face, he said grimly, showing them the message. Earth's conservatives aren't going to like this any more than your purists do. The twins' scales rippled with determination. Then we'll prove them all wrong, Naira declared. Together, Lyra added, taking one of his hands while her sister took the other. The next few weeks would test them in ways none of them could imagine. The first trial was scheduled for the following day, a physical challenge that would push the limits of their species' differences. But as James looked at the twins, their scales shimmering with that enchanting rose color he was beginning to understand meant affection, he knew he wouldn't have it any other way. That evening, in his newly assigned quarters, the environmental controls finally fixed, James received a visitor. Director Thea Walsh of Earth's Xenological Relations Department appeared on his video screen, her expression stern. "Harrison, do you have any idea what you've done? The conservative faction is having a field day. Human diplomat in alien love triangle is trending across every news network in Earth space." "Director, I can explain dash." "Save it," she interrupted, but then her expression softened slightly. "Actually, this might work in our favor. The progressives are hailing it as a breakthrough in interspecies relations. If you can complete these trials successfully, it could fast-track a dozen stalled treaties." James blinked in surprise. "You're not ordering me to back out? Would you? Even if I did?" He thought about the twins, about the connection he'd felt even in their brief interactions. "No," he admitted. "I don't think I would." "That's what I thought," Walsh said with a knowing smile. "Just, try not to show any more human anatomy to alien diplomats without prior approval, okay?" After ending the call, James found a message waiting from the twins, containing details about the first trial. As he read through the requirements, his eyes widened. The physical compatibility test wasn't just about strength or endurance, it required intimate coordination and trust that would challenge any couple, let alone a human trying to synchronize with 2 four-armed Xylaxians. But as he drifted off to sleep, his dreams were filled with shimmering scales and rose-colored possibilities. Tomorrow would bring challenges, but for now, he let himself hope that this crazy situation might lead to something extraordinary. The physical compatibility trial took place in the station's zero-gravity chamber, transformed by Xylaxian technology into a shimmering arena of light and shadow. James stood at one entrance, wearing a specialized suit designed to interface with the twins' natural bioelectric field. Across the chamber, Naira and Lyra waited, their scales rippling with anticipation. "The trial of bodies requires perfect synchronization," announced Elder Voss, an ancient Xylaxian whose scales had faded to pearl with age. She floated in an observation pod alongside representatives from both Earth and the Purist faction. 3 must move as one through the maze of light. Any disruption of the pattern signals failure. James took a deep breath as the trial began. Streams of multicolored energy formed complex, shifting patterns throughout the chamber. The twins moved with natural grace, their 4 arms weaving through the light streams like dancers. James pushed off from his position, using his zero-gravity training to match their rhythm. At first, it seemed impossible. Their movements were too alien, too complex for his human form to mirror. But then something extraordinary happened. The bioelectric interface in his suit began to resonate with the twins' natural field, creating a feedback loop of sensation and awareness. He could feel their movements before they made them, anticipate their patterns as if they were extensions of his own body. "Remarkable," Elder Voss murmured. "The human adapts." Commander Vex watched with barely concealed disgust as the trio navigated the increasingly complex patterns. "This proves nothing. Anyone can learn a dance." But it was more than a dance. As their synchronization deepened, James began to understand the true purpose of the trial. It wasn't about matching movements, it was about achieving harmony despite their differences. His two arms couldn't mirror their four, but they could complement them, creating new patterns that were neither human nor Zylaxian, but something uniquely their own. The trial ended with all three of them suspended in the chamber's center, their bodies intertwined in a perfect geometric form that drew gasps from even the most skeptical observers. The light streams faded, and Elder Voss declared, "The trial of bodies is complete. The union shows promise." Later, as James and the twins celebrated in his quarters, an urgent message arrived from Director Walsh. "Harrison, we have a problem. Someone's leaked classified details about the biochemical compatibility scans. The conspiracy theorists are having a field day. Some are claiming this whole relationship was engineered as part of a secret breeding program." James looked at the twins, who had the grace to appear embarrassed. "About those scans. We should have asked permission," Naira admitted, her scales turning a contrite shade of purple. "But the results were fascinating," Lyra added, unable to contain her scientific enthusiasm. "The quantum resonance patterns in your DNA have a harmonic relationship with our genetic crystalline structure that shouldn't be possible according to conventional xenobiology." Before James could process this revelation, another alert sounded. This time, it was a message for the twins from the Zylaxian High Council. Their scales paled as they read it. "The purists have submitted a formal challenge," Naira explained grimly. "They're invoking an ancient clause in the courtship laws. They claim our compatibility is artificial, engineered by unauthorized genetic manipulation. They're demanding proof that our attraction is natural and not the result of biochemical tampering," Lyra continued. "If we can't provide it, they'll declare the right invalid and James, they'll quarantine the station. They're claiming our compatibility represents a potential biological threat." James ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "This is insane. How can we prove our feelings are real?" "There might be a way," the twins said simultaneously, their scales shifting to a deep, serious blue. "But it would mean taking the second trial, the mental resonance, far sooner than planned. And there's a risk." "What kind of risk?" "The mental link created during the trial is supposed to be temporary," Naira began. "But with our unusual compatibility, it might become permanent," Lyra finished. "Meaning? We would be connected. Always. Every thought, every feeling, every memory, shared." James sat down heavily, his mind reeling. "And if it goes wrong?" The twins exchanged a look that spoke volumes. "Best case? Mental confusion, inability to distinguish individual identity. Worst case, complete psychological breakdown." Before James could respond, his tablet lit up with another urgent message. This one was from Chief Roth. "Ambassador, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the purist ships. They're not weapons, but they're building towards something. Whatever you're planning to prove your case, I suggest you do it quickly." James looked at the twins, their scales now showing swirls of worry and hope in equal measure. He thought about everything that had brought them to this point, a chance encounter, an unconventional attraction, and now a conspiracy that threatened not just their relationship but potentially peace between their species. "When can we begin the mental trial?" he asked. The twins' scales blazed with that now familiar rose color. "You're certain?" "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." What none of them realized was that somewhere in the station's vast computer systems, hidden algorithms were processing their every interaction, gathering data for purposes that went far beyond simple political maneuvering. The true agenda behind their union was about to reveal itself, and it would shake the foundations of both human and Xylaxian society. The mental resonance chamber was a sphere of pure crystal, suspended in the heart of the station. As James entered with the twins, the walls pulsed with a soft, bioluminescent glow that seemed to respond to their presence. Ancient Xylaxian symbols spiraled across the surface, telling stories of unions throughout their history. "Once the link is established," Elder Voss warned, "there is no turning back. Your minds will merge completely. Are you prepared for what you might find in each other's thoughts?" James looked at Naira and Lyra, their scales shimmering with nervous anticipation. "I trust them," he said simply. "That trust may be misplaced," Commander Vex's voice cut in through the chamber's communication system. "We've uncovered disturbing evidence. These twins were part of a classified genetic research program before joining the diplomatic corps." The twins' scales flickered with shock, but before they could respond, Director Walsh's voice also joined the conversation. "Interesting accusation, Commander, considering we've discovered that your purist faction has been running its own illegal genetics lab. Care to explain the human DNA samples found in your database?" The chamber erupted in chaos as accusations flew back and forth. James raised his hands for silence. "None of that matters right now. We're here to prove our connection is real. Everything else can wait." Elder Voss nodded approvingly and activated the chamber's systems. Crystal nodes descended from the ceiling, positioning themselves around the trio's heads. "The merge begins now." The first touch of their minds was like diving into an ocean of liquid light. James gasped as his consciousness expanded, intertwining with the twins' thoughts. Their minds were vast and beautiful, structured in crystalline patterns he could never have imagined. But beneath the surface beauty, he found something unexpected: fear. Not fear of him, but fear for him. Through their merged consciousness, he saw the truth they'd been hiding. The twins had indeed been part of a research program, but not as subjects, as scientists. They'd been investigating ancient Xylaxian prophecies about a future union between their species that would unlock extraordinary potential in both races. "You knew," he projected into their shared mind space. "You knew about me before we met." "Not you specifically," their thoughts answered in harmony. "We knew someone would come. The prophecies spoke of a human who would bridge our worlds. But the accident with the towel, that was genuine. And so are our feelings." Deeper in their merged consciousness, James discovered more. The purists weren't just religious zealots, they were desperately trying to prevent the prophecy from coming true because it predicted the end of pure Xylaxian bloodlines. But they had their own plans for human DNA, plans involving controlled hybridization under their supervision. As these revelations flowed between them, something extraordinary began to happen. The crystal chamber's glow intensified, responding to their deepening mental connection. Symbols on the walls began to shift and change, forming new patterns never seen before. "Impossible," Elder Voss breathed. "The ancient script is rewriting itself." Through their shared consciousness, the trio understood what was happening. The chamber wasn't just a testing ground, it was a key, waiting for millennia for the right combination of minds to unlock its secrets. The prophecies hadn't just predicted their union, they had helped create the conditions for it to occur. But with this understanding came danger. The chamber's power was growing exponentially, feeding off their combined mental energy. If they didn't break the connection soon, it would become permanent, and possibly destroy the station in the process. "We have to separate," James thought urgently. "If we do, we lose our proof," the twins responded. "The purists will declare the right invalid. Better than everyone dying in an antimatter explosion." Their mental link vibrated with shared amusement. "Who said anything about antimatter?" Working as one consciousness, they began to channel the chamber's growing energy. The twins' scientific knowledge merged with James's human intuition, finding patterns that neither species would have recognized alone. The crystal walls absorbed the excess power, transforming it into a dazzling display of light and sound that told their story in a language both cultures could understand. When they finally separated, the chamber had recorded everything: their genuine connection, the twins' true research, the purists' hidden agenda, and most importantly, the beginning of something entirely new in the relationship between their species. Director Walsh's voice came through first. "Well, I think that settles the question of authenticity. And raises about 1,000 new ones." Commander Vex remained silent, but his ships could be seen powering down their mysterious energy signatures on the station's monitors. Elder Voss raised her hands, her scales glowing with an almost youthful excitement. "The trial of minds is complete, and with it, a new chapter in our histories begins." As they left the chamber on shaking legs, supporting each other, James looked at his companions. "Were you ever going to tell me about the prophecy?" Naira's scales rippled with embarrassment. "We were waiting for the right moment. Though the towel incident wasn't quite how we planned to start," Lyra added. "Speaking of plans," James said, "what exactly does this prophecy say happens next?" The twins exchanged one of their mysterious looks, their scales shifting to a completely new color, one that somehow combined their species' characteristics into something unique. "That's the interesting part," they said together. "From here on out, nothing is written. We get to create our own future." A chime from James's tablet interrupted them. Another urgent message, but this time from an unexpected source, the station's AI itself. As he read it, his eyes widened. The implications would change everything they thought they knew about their union, and possibly about the origin of both their species. The message from the station's AI was unlike anything James had ever seen. Complex equations and ancient symbols scrolled across his tablet, interspersed with fragments of code that seemed to write and rewrite themselves as he watched. "This is impossible," Lyra whispered, all four of her hands moving in complex patterns as she analyzed the data. "The station's AI, it's not just artificial intelligence. It's evolved," Naira finished, her scales shifting to a color of pure astonishment. "And it's using a combination of human binary code and ancient Xylaxian script." The AI's message resolved into clear text: the prophecy was not just predicted. It was engineered, by your ancestors. Both of them. Together. The implications hit James like a physical blow. "Are you saying humans and Xylaxians have met before? That we have a shared history?" The station's lights dimmed, and a holographic projection filled the corridor around them. It showed two species, working side by side, building something massive in deep space. The humans looked slightly different, as did the Xylaxians, but they were unmistakably their ancestors. "Approximately 50,000 years ago," the AI explained, "your species collaborated on a project of unprecedented scale. They foresaw a future where their descendants would drift apart, possibly into conflict. The project, which became me, was designed to ensure reunification when the time was right." "The towel incident," James said slowly. "The environmental malfunction, the gravity disruption, none of that was accident, was it?" "I merely created opportunities," the AI responded. "The connection between you three is entirely genuine. As is the potential of what you represent." Commander Vex's voice cut through their revelation. "This is preposterous. More lies to justify this unnatural union." But Elder Voss spoke up, her ancient voice carrying newfound strength. "No, Commander. This explains the gaps in our historical records, the mysterious similarities between our species that our scientists could never explain. And most importantly, it explains the prophecy crystal." The hologram shifted to show a massive crystal structure, buried deep within the station's core. "The final trial," Elder Voss announced, "must take place there." The prophecy crystal chamber made the previous trial rooms look primitive by comparison. It was a vast space that seemed to exist somewhere between normal spacetime, its crystalline walls containing what appeared to be frozen moments of history from both their species. As James and the twins entered, hand in hand, the crystal began to pulse with energy. The station's AI spoke through the chamber itself, its voice resonating from every surface. The spiritual harmony trial is simple. If your union is true, if it represents the potential for genuine reunification between your species, the crystal will respond. And if it doesn't? James asked. Then both our species continue on their separate paths, possibly towards eventual conflict. The twins squeezed his hands, their scales showing that unique new color that combined their species traits. We've come too far to fail now, they said together. They stepped onto the central platform, and the chamber erupted with light. But this time, instead of fighting to control the energy as they had in the mental trial, they embraced it. Their previous trials had prepared them for this moment, the physical synchronization, the mental bond, all of it leading to this final step. The crystal responded to their harmony, projecting images of possible futures around them. They saw children with both human and Zylaxian traits, new technologies born from the combination of their species' knowledge, and most importantly, a lasting peace that would allow both cultures to flourish together. Commander Vex and his purist faction watched in stunned silence as the ancient prophecy fulfilled itself before their eyes. Director Walsh, speaking for Earth, was the first to officially recognize what they were witnessing. This goes beyond a simple diplomatic union. This is the beginning of a new chapter for both our species. The energy built to a crescendo, and for a moment, everyone in the chamber experienced a shared vision of that possible future. When it faded, there wasn't a doubt left in anyone's mind about the legitimacy of their union. Later, as they prepared for the formal bonding ceremony that would unite them officially, James looked at his soon-to-be mates with wonder. Did you ever imagine, when you were studying those ancient prophecies, that it would lead to this? Naira's scales rippled with joy. We hoped. But the reality is better than any prophecy, Lyra added. The ceremony itself was broadcast across both their territories, becoming the most watched event in either species' history. The sight of a human and two Zylaxians exchanging vows of eternal union, their bodies glowing with the crystal's blessing, became a symbol of hope for interspecies relations everywhere. And as they sealed their bond with the traditional exchange of genetic patterns, and one very human kiss that caused quite a stir among conservative viewers, the station's AI recorded one final message in its historical database. Project Reunification, Phase 1 complete. The seeds of harmony have been planted. May they grow into a future brighter than either species could achieve alone. James and the twins would go on to become the first of many such unions, pioneering the way for a new era of human-Zylaxian cooperation. Their accidental first meeting, a simple drop towel, had indeed changed the course of history. But that, as they would often tell their children, who did indeed inherit traits from both species, was just the beginning of their story. The true adventure was in the life they built together, proving that love truly could transcend any boundary, even those of different species from across the stars.